My name is Ali, and today I will be evaluating the significance of civil society in post Soviet Russia. In Russia's recent history, the definition and existence of democracy has been questioned. In light of recent events, the news regarding governmental control and its leaders' observers examine whether or not Russian civil society can exist with such extensive restrictions from the state. Despite the lack of support by the government, the non-profit sector has had some success. In order to better understand the significance of civil society in post-Soviet Russia, the following presentation would elucidate upon the concept of civil society as what it tends to be, its historic roots within Russia, and its importance in post-Soviet Russia. So, several definitions exist for formalizing the notion of civil society, but most seem to agree that civil society is the sum of institutions, organizations, and individuals located between the family, the state, and the market, in which people associate voluntarily to advance common interests. One of the most important facets of civil society is the fact that its intention is to be separate from the state or government in which it exists. Though civil society and the government certainly overlap and cooperate, the purpose of civil society is to exist outside of governmental influence so that it may truly serve the common interests of the individuals and organizations that are involved. And civil society often acts as a channel between institutions and the government so that the interests of individuals are effectively communicated. With the example of Russia, the relationship between its civil society and state has constantly been unstable due to strong governmental control. As more instances come to light of governmental control over the philanthropic sector, one should question whether Russia's system currently aligns with the definition of civil society that we already have. Non governmental organizations or NGOs fulfill many important functions in society. In civil society research, their arena is commonly defined as the social space beyond the market, the state, and the household. But by providing the basis for discussion and exchange, civil society allows citizens to come together, organize themselves, and deal with topics of common concern and interest. The motivations of NGOs are various. They can range from non political club type activities to political advocacy with the aim of changing public policies. Common to all NGOs is that they are based on a shared understanding of a meaningful and fulfilling activity that unites their members and supporters. In democratic political systems, various channels of social interest representation and mediation exist. Political parties play a prominent role in responding to public concern, in defending the interests of different population groups, in formulating positions and finding solutions in the political arena. However, the problem arises when we talk about non democratic or hybrid political systems, which are characterized by the fact that the forms of political interest, representation, and mediation are restricted. In countries such as Russia, political parties are largely stripped of their function of societal intermediaries. They are not effective in responding to citizens' needs and achieving a common good. So, because of its history with communism, Russia's attempts to build a strong civil society have been strained. The definition of communism ultimately cancels the idea of a civil society. Under the system of communism, everything is controlled and owned by the state, and the government becomes an autonomous entity. There is no force that exists outside of the state. Therefore, there is no opportunity for institutions and associations to form outside of state interests. The area, the era of imperialist Russia existed for a majority of the 20th century, and while a sliver of civil society existed, a mere fragment, if you will, it was dominated by intrusive and antiquated government. Since the fall of communism in the Soviet Union in the 1990s, this has allowed the chance for a true civil society and ultimately a democracy to exist within Russia. Since everything was not property of the state, individuals and organizations were able to meet with other like minded people for the purpose of furthering common interests. However, that did not happen. In Russia's recent history, the definition and existence of democracy has been questioned through and through. Vladimir Putin, Russia's current leader, has been scrutinized by Russians who want to make a difference to non profit organizations to improve their civil society. Civil society is alive in Russia, but that is despite the efforts of the states, not thanks to them, says Boris Makarenko. Russia believes that Putin has created roadblocks for non profit organizations in order to manage where the money goes in Russia. Within the last few years, Putin has been criticized for openly sympathizing with the communist ideals and practices during the era of the USSR. Putin was also a prominent member of the Communist Party and has even been quoted saying he believed that the Soviet Union should have been granted even more autonomy than it received. Russia has had a long fight to create civil society that operates from within its own country. Individuals and businesses have funded non profit organizations in hopes to encourage Russians to participate in their own philanthropic endeavors. However, the bottom line, according to activists and international funders, is that Russians simply haven't stepped in to foster major philanthropic and activist work, and almost certainly not to do so in the wake of certain arrests and political defamations that have happened throughout the years. Many Russians are aware of Putin's advances to demolish their civil society, according to one publication. Civil society institutions in Russia have to struggle and still face hindrances till this day. For instance, an arson attack on Russian human rights group Memorial was a highly suspicious incident in its entirety. Memorial is a network of organizations and associations which focus on past, present human rights violation in Russia. The head of the organization's office in Chechnya, Oyub Titiev, was stopped in his car by the police on 9th January and held in command for several hours. The Chechen authorities uh, later stated that drugs had been discovered in his car. His lawyer Pyotr Zaikin said he was kept under constant close surveillance by plainclothesmen throughout his stay in Chechnya and that this car was repeatedly stopped by the police, uh, bordering to almost uh, political harassment. Another example is of the infamous fines on Memorial. As the State Duma approves of the controversial amendments to the Media and Information Law, Russia's major historical and human rights society Memorial keeps struggling against prosecution, court calls, and fines. Since September, Russian Historical Education and Human Rights Society Memorial has been perhaps one of the most regular guests at Moscow courts. 28 protocols in total have been filed against the NGO, and its chairpersons within the past 5 months have been charged with fines exceeding 3 million rubles. So, what does this entail in terms of the future prospects of civil society in Russia? What is the future for this shrinking space, as we call it, or this third sector of what we know is civil society? So, in December 2011, Russia was admitted to the World Trade Organization 18 years after its first application, and all that remained was for the Duma to ratify the agreement. In March 2012, Putin was returned as president for a new 7 year term, and in 2018, Putin was re elected as president for a 6 year term, which ends in 2024. Thus, for the alter globalization movement, as for other dissident forces, a new period of struggle lies ahead to win a greater degree of social and economic justice and a more democratic society in Russia. On the other hand, Putin has promised to prioritize social issues, and CSOs are well placed to work for positive results in this area. However, this can be viewed as a crossroad for Russian civil society. The question arises, will activists and organizations collaborate or conflict with the government? It is likely that many will opt for the first of these strategy is to build a harmonious amalgamation with the government if they cooperate. It is also likely that they may face challenges of how to resist incorporation and maintain their own agenda during the negotiations, which is mostly the result of how the government has formed post Soviet Russia. I believe that this entails and outlines a proper image of what civil society is and how it pertains to exist within the Russian state. Thank you so much.